Hey boss, we found a video for you to respond to.
Respond? Do I even do that anymore? Alright, what is it?
Well, it's, why don't you tell him?
Well, it's, Okay.
I'm just gonna show you.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi.
Okay, I think I know where this is going.
No, you don't.
You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet there it is. And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier.
Right, so this is like a new skeptic channel or something, doing like a parody?
No, boss. This is real. You know what I'm gonna do! Okay.
No one should ever have a random chance of fighting for the Nazis.
Totally. Wait, are we talking about real life or video games still? And look what else is on this chart. Puppy, unicorn, banana, Nick Cage.
And we should never express that there's no meaningful difference between Nazis and Allied soldiers, or that they're functionally interchangeable.
We should never. Oh god. This is absolutely gonna be another one of those self-awareness lacking authoritarians telling us why authoritarianism is bad videos, isn't it?
We were trying to warn you, boss.
Wait, I have an equivocation.
Before anyone equivocates and says not all German soldiers in World War II were Nazis,
I'll see myself out.
if they were wearing the swastika and are functioning as an arm of the Nazi government, then unless the game goes out of its way to tell you specifically that your particular character is not a Nazi, then they're a Nazi.
So this is about games. You know, games are not real life. I love that he drew such a concerned face for this argument. Guys, you're being Nazis and you don't even know it.
Why did you do that?
Just killing Germans any way I can.
We're on the German team. Shoot the British.
In that multiplayer shooter, when it switched you to the German side, did it go out of its way to tell you that the person you're playing was pressed into service under threat of their life? Yeah, that's a big ol' nope.
When the game switched you over to the Allies, did they tell you that you are the last living son of a British family who almost all died during a blitzkrieg, and that you were conscripted to the British Army against your will under threat of prison and loss of your family farm? And that when that German soldier jumps over the ridge and pops you in the head with a sniper rifle, that your family name dies with you? No! Because World War II is an aesthetic. If you want to learn about the war and experience the war, video games are not the way to do it. Video games are about challenge, competition, and strategy. By the end of World War II, and I'm sure this goes for most wars, most of the people fighting didn't want to be fighting. Wars in general are futile, dangerous, evil things that nobody should want to participate in. And if you believe that by participating in an aesthetic in a video game setting in some way connects you with the real life events that took place, in my eyes, if you believe this about video games and you've also admitted to enjoying violent video games, then you are a monster.
Oh, and on a similar note, let's please stop forcing people to play as terrorists as well.
Oh my god, what does he mean forcing?
There you are, playing your modern shooter, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist. You didn't ask for this, you didn't choose this, and yet second verse, same as the first, there it is. I mean, that's literally the name of your side in the game.
I literally cannot facepalm hard enough. Wait, let me try. Yeah, that's the one. Besides the fact that he's failed to demonstrate why it's bad that we even have these things in video games to begin with, the real problem with his video here is that it hinges on this one argument, that the player doesn't choose to play as the bad guy. I'm sorry, but that's broken logic, and you know that it is. Now, maybe you prefer to play a game where you're actually fighting exclusively against Nazis, and that the message of the game is that Nazis are bad, and that eradicating the world of Nazis is a good thing. I've had a lot of fun playing the modern Wolfenstein series, and that game spends a lot of time discussing why Nazis are bad and why liberalism, inclusion, and diversity are a good thing, and it's so satisfying. However, not every gamer gets enjoyment out of linear gameplay. Some players need a greater challenge than AI can provide, and that is where multiplayer comes in. Game developers are pumping out these first-person shooter games almost every year. One of the challenges for game developers now is to pump out games that feel new, yet operate within a familiar, proven aesthetic. There's only so many genres that they can pull from now, and World War II comes up more often than not. I know I made this argument in my video response to Trump.
We must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace.
It's almost as if they believe that by forming entertainment around an idealized reality, somehow it will contribute towards creating that reality. These people completely ignore the role that entertainment has in our society. The aesthetic in any video game can seem unpalatable if you just sit there and think about the political implications, but that's not what gaming is about. The role of the gamer is not to sit there and think about the individual life choices of each soldier. The role of the gamer is to strategize and outwit their opponents. When your troops are landing on the beach of Normandy during D-Day trying to run through a wall of machine gun fire, you're not thinking, "God damn it, Nazis, give us France back." You're thinking, "Hey, they have more points than me. I want the points." But the real reason that this argument is complete horseshit is because you do choose to fight as the Nazis. You literally do choose. When you saw the game advertised on television, it was advertised as Allies versus Nazis. When you walked into the game store, it had a picture of Allies and Nazis on the cover. When you loaded that game up on your system for the first time, there was a cutscene clearly depicting a battle between Allies and Nazis. When you clicked on the multiplayer, you were prompted to choose weapon loadouts for both when you play the Allies and the Nazis. Based on the multiplayer mechanics of every first-person shooter, you knew there would be a 50-50 chance that you would play as a Nazi. At no point did you not know. Nobody's forcing you to play these games. Nobody's pointing a gun at your head and say, "Hey, little Johnny, play as a Nazi." It's universally understood that when you play as a Nazi in this game, you're not actually endorsing the Nazis.
We can do better than this.
This is like a fever dream.
Even if you put aside all of the people who have had traumatic experiences with these groups, who have lost loved ones to terrorists, or who have had generations of their families wiped out by Nazis, no one should have to put on the costume of an ideology they find abhorrent without actually opting into it in your game.
I don't even disagree with that. If you really hate something that bad, you probably shouldn't buy games where that's possible.
And by making people do so, we get them to stop thinking about it, to stop thinking of the meaning behind these things. We normalize them.
Okay. No. If we're gonna start going down that road, then we need to start acknowledging that Jack Thompson and Donald Trump were right, and that first-person shooters in general normalize violence. If violence is a bad thing, I think we can all agree on that. So if we're playing video games that have shooting and slicing and chainsawing guys in half, well, that's normalizing it. So, if you're a gamer, you're a bad person in general.
We make them just window dressing for entertainment.
Now you're getting it.
Those uniforms, those symbols, become things that no longer inherently revolt us. They reduce our visceral reaction to seeing the embodiment of these ideologies.
How? No, it doesn't. How? Okay, maybe it desensitizes us to those symbols, but they're still recognizably bad things.
Does this make us totally ignore the history that comes with them? No. But for some people, it moves them from the territory of revolting to just edgy.
Yeah, I've been to the internet before.
It makes scrawling a swastika on something change from unthinkable to just dangerous.
You think video games are doing that? Holy shit, dude, you should pay a lot more attention to the news.
It means you might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave. And if you don't leave, you might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
So basically, people are too stupid to not become a Nazi. Even with all the tools at people's disposal. The history taught to them in school, the context of the narrative of the game they're playing. No. Just seeing those symbols will make you a Nazi.
It seems like such a small and simple thing, but it's things like this that erode our safeguards against dangers we sacrifice so much to fight.
Dude, what are you talking about? Why do you think people even hate Nazis in the first place? It's not like, as a Nazi, you're given the objective to defend a concentration camp from being liberated by the Allies, lose 1 point for every Holocaust survivor that escapes, then you'd have a point about it eroding the whatever of our society. But these games don't offer that experience. They offer the on-the-ground, first-person shooter experience. Every soldier on the front lines, both Allied and Nazi, experienced the same thing. They were given orders to capture targets, secure targets, and defeat their enemy. As a soldier on the ground, you don't give a fuck about the politics. You just want to kill the people that need to die so that you can go home to your wife. For the common soldier, the war was not about the decisions made in smoke-filled rooms with tuxedo-wearing assholes.
There's not a reason why, there's but to do and die.
That's what World War II was about!
By the time you've played 100 hours of being a Nazi, their voice stabs become memes and in-jokes with your friends.
Yeah, German is a hilarious language.
By the 1000th time you've respawned as a terrorist, you're either celebrating them or making fun of them. Neither of which helps the global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
When has any video game helped with any global anything ever? That's not the job of video games. Dude, you know what you're doing? You're putting the pussy on a pedestal. And that's just as dangerous to your relationship as... I'm sorry? You're putting video games on a pedestal, and that's just as dangerous as anything that EA could ever do. You know, I get it. You find the ability for someone to play as a terrorist distasteful. You're not the first person in the universe to find something in the aesthetic of a fucking video game distasteful. Forget the violence. If we're going by extra credits logic, then we have to acknowledge that a lot of these first-person shooter games really just serve as pro-United States military propaganda. I get that an American-centric game would want the Americans to be the good guys, but they sell these exact same games as is to Middle Eastern and Asian countries. Think about the implications there, including countries that you've invaded and drone striked. And a lot of these games, including Call of Duty, basically boil down to Americans police foreign nations and kill brown people. That's probably very psychologically damaging to the people of these countries. To a lot of people around the world, the United States is the bad guy.
So what do? That's easy. Don't make them morally equivalent.
Literally no one is doing that.
Don't make there be no in-game moral difference.
Don't make there be no.
Don't make there be no in-game moral difference between your Nazis and your allies.
This motherfucker is demanding that politics be injected into games.
Between your terrorists and your counter-terrorist squads.
Objection, Your Honor, or Mr. I decide everything from behind this fancy podium. I've held my tongue on this whole terrorist, counter-terrorist thing, but I'm starting to think that you've never actually played Counter-Strike before. Even though that game has no story and no context, it is absolutely clear that the terrorists are the bad guys and what they do is morally reprehensible. Their objective is to blow things up or to stop hostages from being rescued. Nobody thinks that those are good things. But the point of that game is not to immerse yourself in the role of a terrorist. It's to outwit your opponents using very specific game mechanics. I mean, one side has hostages and the other side saves them. How is that morally equivalent? They're literally called the terrorists. Nobody calls themselves a fucking terrorist.
Frame PvP as a training exercise.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you sure this isn't a parody? This game already exists. It's called Splatoon, and it's literally marketed to the demographic that is exactly as gullible as you're describing. Children. Children cannot play violent World War II simulators.
Or simply take one of your non-odious sides and recolor them so that it's red versus blue, rather than Axis versus Allies.
This game exists too. It's called Halo, and it's like one of the most popular shooters ever. Why is it not good enough for you that the games you want already exist? Why do you have to ruin everybody else's fun and make all games the games you want?
A good example of a game that does this is Rainbow Six Siege. All of your bomb diffusion and hostage rescue multiplayer with no normalizing terrorists.
You get what he's saying here? He's demanding that an extra degree of separation be added to the immersion of the game. It's not enough that the game is already fiction and that the events depicted are not real. The characters in the game also have to believe that what is happening is not real. Why?
And if you decide that you need to have both sides be playable, don't make them interchangeable. Don't have players randomly spawn in as one or the other. Allow players to choose which side they're on.
Yeah, now I'm questioning if you're even a gamer. The worst thing about multiplayer shooters is waiting for the lobby to fill. Letting people choose is just gonna make things take longer, but there's another more important reason that you don't get to choose which side you're on. Balance. The key to good competitive gameplay is to ensure that all the strong players don't end up on one side and all the weak players don't end up on the other. That's not fun for anybody.
Now, of course, this has all sorts of in-game problems, such as creating shorter wait times for fascists.
Ding, 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 ding. He never says it expressly, but the actual argument he's making in his video is that we should be impressing all of the political stigmas of the Nazi regime onto the player who plays as a Nazi. Clearly, he feels a personal conviction when he is forced to play a Nazi against his will, not enjoying the Achtung like the rest of us. He feels the guilt and the stigma of Nazism being forced upon him. He's decided that we too must carry that stigma. So by implying that fascists will have shorter wait times, he's implying that only fascists will play as Nazis. And kind of implying, by extension, that if you've enjoyed playing as a Nazi...
But you know what? Those wait times could be artificially extended.
Yeah, that's gonna make everybody really happy.
If it meant players had an active choice in what teams they would represent, if you're saying we need people playing Nazis in our games.
We need Nazis in our... Oh my god, this is so disingenuous. Of course, his suggestion is to make the game less playable.
And if you're going to say, but we need it for historical reasons, then your game better actually be historical. You can't really just hide behind the fact you called your desert map El Alamein and say, but it's historical. If that were the case, you need your PvP to at least represent real historical events and be a realistic take on those battles.
So he's like, you can have Nazis as long as it's historical, but I alone will decide how historical it has to be. Don't ask why. You don't think that he might explain why? He doesn't. He never explains why.
Once you make both sides balanced, it's also no longer historical. And you can't really say that you need Nazis anymore for historical accuracy.
You know, it goes beyond him being a prude, and I'm more worried now that he's joined some space cult that thinks negative thoughts are gonna destroy the universe. He's being disingenuous. Again, he's setting the terms, saying that the games have to fit a specific criteria, but just by coincidence, by fitting criteria that make it an actual game, like balance and a map that works, you're no longer fitting the criteria of it being historical. So what he's really saying is you can't make these games, because if you did, they just wouldn't sell, because nobody would buy a game that was unbalanced, that had maps that favored a specific team over another. It's like a lesson in finding disingenuousinality. This is like abusive behavior, literally like you'd see in a cult, creating no-win scenarios and punishing the game developer no matter what they decide. Are you okay? Who did this to you? Who did did this to you?
And once you let players get cool weapons that weren't actually at that particular battleground, it's also no longer historically accurate. And you can't declare that your game will suffer if you don't put players in the jackboots of the Third Reich. And once your map is something carefully designed to have good gameplay by a team in a room in San Francisco or LA, and it's not a faithful reconstruction of the actual places the historical events occurred in, you can no longer say we need to have players take up arms in service of terror or hate. We're not saying we can't have games about World War II or about terrorism.
That is literally what you're saying. Wait, who's we? Who's we now? I just realized that I don't even know who this guy is. Where's the extra credits, gang? And what have you done with them? Show their faces!
We're not even saying we shouldn't make games where you play as a Nazi or a terrorist.
This is like what a cult leader does right after they slap you. It's okay. I don't hate you. I do this because I love you.
But what we are saying,
Right before they slap you in the face again,
is that the fact that you're playing as a Nazi or a terrorist in a game has to mean something.
why?
And it can't just be a skin.
Why?
It can't be something that a game randomly drops you into.
Why?
And really, if we are saying anything in this episode, it's this. Games can do better.
Wait, no more loot crates, please.